Hi, I'm Mark McPherson. Welcome to one of my videos in my series of videos where we take a look at what I call the 11 essential, fundamental, core, non-verbal communication skills, or more specifically, visual communication skills. In this video, we're going to take a look at the skill of associating, joining, linking one idea, piece of information, theme, issue, or emotion with another. And we're also going to look at dissociating or separating them because both are important. When we speak, we tend to speak sentence after sentence and things tend to flow, and people generally get the idea that we're talking about the one issue. If we don't do it well, of course, people will say things like, are we still talking about such and such? So sometimes it's important to be very clear about we are now going on to a brand new topic. We're talking about this, but now we're going to talk about something else. So we might actually say to the person, that's okay, but what I really want to talk about is this other issue. So we need to make it clear to people that we are now dissociating. We're separating whatever we were talking about before from whatever we want to talk about now. So we use our words, plus we use some non-verbals or visual communication. We were talking about that, but now we want to talk about this. I was at an annual general meeting way back in 2009, I think it was, and it was because of the global financial crisis that our shares in this particular company were going down, down, down. And the person stood in front of a graph and showed the share price going down. Now this is negative, there's no doubt about it. They were talking about the share price going down, and the person stood near it. Now what they then went on to say was, but in the future, blah, 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 things are going to look brighter. But they didn't clearly dissociate or separate this talk about the negative issue of the share prices going down with the pessimism, the optimism of the future. Now, one of the things they could have done, of course, is just simply turn off that slide. That would have helped. Another thing they could have done is physically remove themselves from that topic, that issue, to another space to talk about their optimism for the future. And one way of doing that is to turn that slide off. They could say we're now going to talk about the future, but they should have looked down, moved over to a new position, and then said, but the future is looking good for this company. Something like that. They should have physically, not just through words, but physically removed themselves from that issue, separated themselves from what they wanted to talk about from that issue to the new topic of the future. Now I remember when I was teaching, and one of the tricks I used to do, or tricks perhaps that's not the right word, one of the strategies I used to use is when I was talking to the students about a particular concept or issue, I might want to write something on the board about it. I did not want to separate what I had been talking to the students about from what I was going to write on the board about. So what I would say to the students is something like, let me just follow this up with a few key words on the board. And I would look at the students as I moved. Now, be careful not to trip over, of course, but I wanted to bring them with me. If I looked down, it would have given the impression, that's finished with, we've done that topic, it's a brand new topic. But I wanted to speak on the same topic. I wanted to associate. I wanted to join and link what I was talking about with what I was going to write on the board. So I did this, blah, 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 blah. Let me write that on the board. Sometime I have to turn around, I get it. But the point was to bring them with me in some regard. This is important. Unlike the annual general meeting, we wanted to dissociate. In this case, I wanted to associate. I remember when I was when I was working as a tourist guide in Genolan Caves before I was a teacher. And one of the things I was taught then by a fellow by the name of Don, if I've got the name correct, he said, when you're giving the rules and regulations before you enter the cave, put on a particular professional voice, give the rules and regulations, look at people, make a bit of eye contact, and then when you have finished the rules, you could stop, look down, move away, and then say something like, please get your tickets ready. We are now ready to go on our tour of blah, blah, blah. So rather than associate, join, or link the Mark McPherson giving the rules with Mark McPherson, the nice bloke, professional bloke who's going to take you on this fun and fantastic fantastically informative tour, you wanted to separate the two. And one way was not to do what I had done with the school students, which was look at them and drag them with me, but to separate it by making it clear that it had finished, moving on, and then saying, ready to go into the cave. I'm going to leave it at that. I think that's enough. But if you'd like to talk more about how you can use the non-verbal or specifically visual skill of associating, joining, linking, and dissociating and separating one idea, one thought, one issue from another, please give us a call, because there's most certainly more to it than what we've had time for in this short video. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, please look after yourselves, look after your friends and family, and I do hope to chat to you soon. All the very best.